Strangely enough, I have not gotten my agenda. I knew there was one. I knew there was going to be some next to get some of this over. We went over and talked to people that here. Craig Brown set up the meeting for us, and they had all these different people. It's very confusing to me. You know, like you look at construction, yeah, and an engineer. You just don't understand. There's a need or there isn't. It's like, oh, they can do an easement and a right away. The county has to accept this. The county did it all. It's like, wait a minute.
Yeah, yeah, that part's done. You don't have a PowerPoint, do we?
No, this is just going to be given to you. So was that the last of the items to get done for you? Attorneys, right?
No.
Chief, how we doing?
We're doing good. How about you?
Busy but good.
Yeah.
We got all the stuff ready for your executive session Tuesday. The fan thing, the Prescott thing, it's all in there.
It's all in. Oh, yeah. We'll get that done.
I know a couple of, probably take you 3 meetings, I guess, maybe 4. We'll have some back and forth. It looks good.
All we gotta do is pass the bond.
Feels good, man. Feels really good.
Well, you got all it done.
Scott did a really good article in the paper. That was fabulous. And Gary's getting rolling with his crew. So I'm hopeful maybe next week we'll get like a FOIA kind of a request for a bunch of information, and then we'll just give him all of it and let him go. Anyway,
Okie dokie.
looks pretty good. I think Phyllis has been just slaving away getting information together for you guys for your Tuesday.
Oh, is that right? Good.
Yeah, it's knee deep. I mean, it's a lot of detail there.
Yeah, I figured that.
Yeah. Anyway, it's all good. It feels good. It's all coming together.
Good.
I'm gonna be out of town tomorrow. I'll be in Scottsdale at the land use law update for the attorneys. I have to get 16 hours a year of legal planning stuff, and I have to get 20 hours a year of management stuff.
So how long is this?
It's an all-day deal. So
I'll knock most of it out.
well, it'll give me 8 hours of the legal stuff. I have to get 2 hours of ethics, that's required, and then I can fill the rest however I need. And the ICMA requires 40 hours a year for management stuff. But I can read books and do webinars, and I don't have to actually go. But here, there's not too many webinars in Arizona for the AICP planning stuff. So this one yearly thing knocks out usually my legal stuff. All the stuff the legislature and the courts did to us over the year.
Well, you need to keep up on that because they go crazy every year.
Well, and you know, we're facing some of it with the marijuana growing stuff because some of those guys are pretty litigious, and we need to be watching out for that. So, pays to
Did you find out if we still have 8?
8.
That's what the ladies told me, is we have 8.
I think it's 5. I think it's 5. And one of them's on the ropes. He's asking for a variance, and I don't see how he can get it. There's one other one that's going to have to go through the full-blown planning process, and he may not make it out the other side. And then, you know, Emerald City went belly up. They're not doing anything over
Is
there.
that right?
Yeah. Anyway, some of the guys that started here and flaked out are coming back here now. I think we're probably going to wind up with 3 or 4.
No sun in greenhouses, is that what he was
I don't
saying?
think it's going to be a landslide or anything we have to worry about. Jobs are jobs.
Well, yeah. Well, there's a lot of money in it, so people will gravitate quite a bit.
Oh, we're going to compete for some more CDBG funds.
Oh, good.
You know, we're on this 4-year dole out from NACOG, but there are other funds available in CDBG we're going to go after.
Correct, he's not
Good.
here.
May be able to,
That's helped a lot with that.
yeah.
No, he has,
How you doing, Lon?
I'm doing.
Um,
Right, wrong, or indifferent, I'm doing.
There is a metric ton of details that are being included in your council packet
Okay,
that are the same exact details that we were going to develop to brief you.
okay,
So tomorrow I'm out of town. I'm in Scottsdale legal training tomorrow. Is Saturday morning, is that a bad time? Because you wanted to go over the details before you reached out.
I'm pretty sure I'm gonna be around Saturday morning.
Or tomorrow evening. I'll be back from Scottsdale probably
Let's have fun
around
today.
7 or so. I have an 8 a.m. to about 5 p.m. training session I have to go to down there. It's land use law, it's zoning stuff.
Okay,
But once I get back, we could do it tomorrow evening if you want to do it then.
okay, let's see how I do, because I'm down there too.
Oh, you are?
Yeah, I've
Okay.
gotta be down at,
Some strange.
We could just stay down there and never come back.
yeah. Get a place with a pool, and
That's right.
we can sit in the pool and have a drink and read over the,
I'm going to be at the Orange Tree Golf Club if you are out in Scottsdale. 'Cause that's where my session is.
yeah. I'm going down to, what the heck's that called? It's clear down by South Mountain, off on Maricopa. There's a development there with a golf course and that.
Ooh, sounds nice.
They've got some well pump issues that I gotta go talk to them about. So,
They got water coming up out of the ground down there.
it sounds like they've got water. It's just a matter of if the pump doesn't work, you know?
Oh, you can't get out of there. Yeah. All right, well, let me know. when
Okay,
it's good.
all right.
There's no one here to ask questions about this. They must have had a target thing out on Highway 40 yesterday and went up there. There were at least 20 different police agencies stopped trucks all around the way, and then there was a pull-off one. And they kept going all the way and came back, there was about 10. Today, there were like, I never seen that many police officers going in. There were like 10 going in, coming back. I think that used roadside rest, and I saw a federal trailer there. So it must have been a,
There's a pot.
They're rounding up the horses to
Mhm.
get out of the
they
corral.
were pulling them all off on the side and then making them pull into the rest area.
Doing some drug interdiction.
Huh?
Doing some drug
Is
interdiction.
that what it is?
Through the hole in the wall.
I never saw so many, I didn't know there were that many.
Yeah, they do that periodically.
That's what you used to do in the old days.
Yeah.
All right, well, Please turn your microphones off. We'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. May we have the roll call, Ms. Hart?
Good evening. How about Councilmember Turner?
Here.
Councilmember Wojak?
Here.
Councilmember Hatch?
Here.
Vice Mayor Croft? Here. And Mayor Marley?
Here.
Thank you.
Okay. We have a quorum. Mr. Smith, will there be anyone doing any presentations tonight? Or if not, I was going to work our way through the bond language and see if anyone had any questions or problems with any of the language.
Yes, sir. We were anticipating going through the language, and then there was it's not present in the handouts that you've been given, but we were going to ask council for examples of questions and answers that it might want posed. That way we could get your input on this language that's here, and then some sample Q&A that we could send over to Mike Cafiso and Mark Reeder. So on the 10th, when you have your meeting, they can be prepared and have materials ready for another round.
Right. Okay. Sample questions and answers. If our council would please keep that in the back of their heads here. But I am correct in assuming that we won't have Mr. Cafiso here this evening?
No, sir.
Okay.
Is there a reason,
Yes, ma'am.
is there a reason why we didn't get this in advance? I hate sitting here reading these things while you're going over them. Doesn't give me time to think it through. I've said this before.
Ms. Hatch, this is the same thing that we had the other evening
Really? Are you,
on
are you
527.
agreeing to the idea? For sure? I don't
I
think
brought the old one.
Is it identical? Is it identical? Are you sure?
Wow, aren't we argumentative tonight?
No, I'm just curious. Is it?
It's, from what I have seen
Okay.
so far, it appears to be the same thing that we got on the 27th. But
Okay.
we're going to be going through it page by page. Or at least,
But it,
as far as me being the chairman, I think that's what I was planning.
well, yeah, but it would have been
Yes, ma'am.
nice to know that's what we were gonna go over tonight. There
Yes,
isn't
ma'am.
anything on the agenda that would have told me that, so I could
Okay.
review it in advance.
Okay. Point well taken. Thank you.
Mayor Marley?
Yes, sir.
I can say that what you have in your hands was printed from your last agenda packet. It is identical to what was given to you in your last meeting.
Okay, thank you very much. At the regular meeting of our town council on 5/27 of 2014, this language was presented to us. We didn't have a great deal of time. We had a presentation that we went through, and we also had, I believe it was Mr. Cafiso that gave us some examples of a ballot for the city of Flagstaff. And I believe I've got the Flagstaff language separated out here. And then there's a resolution on the proposed GO bond that I believe was given to us on the 27th. Is that in our packets tonight, Mr. Smith?
No, sir. All we have are the drafts that was presented by Cafiso and Reeder relative to the bond drafts that they were preparing for us.
Okay, great. Anyway, it's a study session. We don't have to come to any earth-shaking conclusions because we can't vote on anything tonight anyways. Insofar as our packet that we've been given, we have a short little bit of ballad language, and then we have the resolution itself. And then we have, on page A1, we have the full form, evidently, of the ballot itself. And if it please the council, we can just sort of work our way through this. I don't really think we're gonna have a lot of questions till we get to item B2. But one question that I wanted to ask Mr. Smith before we get going on this, have you received any advice from our town attorney regarding doing a separate resolution in addition to the bond itself?
I have not received
Not
feedback
received
from her
feedback
yet.
from her on that? Okay. I would be anxious to know if we can do that, because I know Ms. Hatch has expressed some concerns, I've expressed some concerns, and I would like to have those addressed in resolution form if at all possible. All right. Issuance of bonds payable from secondary or ad valorem property tax. We'll go ahead and just look through this real quickly and ask if we have any questions or changes that anyone wishes to make. For our audience sake, we will try to work through this in a timely manner, because I know we've got folks in the audience that would like to address council. Is that correct? Well, I invited you, so and you sounded like you had something that you wanted to ask or had some thoughts you wanted to share, so. Okay, cool. Anyway, don't want to hold our council or our audience up for too long, but I'd like to just real briefly spend some time in this. I'm going to go ahead and read this for our audience benefit. Issuance of bonds payable from secondary ad valorem property tax. This is basically a ballot question. Shall the town of Chino Valley, Arizona, the town, be authorized to incur indebtedness by the issuance of bonds of the town in the principal amount of $13,500,000 for the purpose of providing funds to pay the cost to design, develop, construct, acquire, equip, and furnish facilities within and without the town for water production and distribution and wastewater collecting and treatment, including necessary related interests in real estate, appurtenances, vehicles, and equipment, and to pay all costs incidental to any of the foregoing into the sale and issuance of such bonds or any series thereof to be issued as general obligation bonds of the town payable from secondary ad valorem property tax levied upon all the taxable property in the town to mature not more than 25 years from their date and to bear interest at a rate of not to exceed 7% per annum. I pointed out in our meeting on the 27th that I had a real heartburn with the word vehicles being in that. We had, I believe, talked to Mr. Cafiso about it, and it had been removed when we got as far as the second draft of the ballot language on page A1, Exhibit A. But if it suits the council, I would not even consider using this money for buying vehicles. This is to deal with our sewer plant. This is to deal with pipes in the ground with the Prescott water system. This is to help our town get right side up. Yes, ma'am.
I agree with you, but in purchasing the fan and taking over the fan wastewater, our water treatment plant currently under FAN's name.
Right, yes, ma'am.
Are we going to need to purchase any of those vehicles or anything?
Yes, sir, Mr. Smith.
Our agreement with Fan Environmental will not include a transfer of vehicles over to us.
Okay, thank you.
It's for services
Okay.
only.
I would like to have that really cleaned. Yes, sir.
Are we gonna have to lease vehicles to do
Right.
the work with the pipes and things?
Yeah,
If we are, then it probably should be.
right.
We could use the mayor's car out in the parking lot there.
No, I don't think so. It may not make it.
All right. Good point, Ms. Hatch. Thank you.
He's right.
And we may end up, I believe, I spoke with the young fellow that operates the plant there, and he said that he does a couple of different stations, but I don't believe it would be that big of a drain on our town.
Aren't you talking about putting
I'm
the
talking about
pipes in the ground?
on 89.
Yeah.
Or we're gonna have to lease vehicles, diggers or whatever type of equipment.
Oh, yeah, heavy equipment, you bet. And there's,
That's what- I think that's, hopefully
yeah.
that's what that means.
okay, vehicles and equipment. Yes, sir.
The equipment language in there, the construction work will be done under contract. The town won't be out there putting this stuff in the ground. There'll be a
Okay.
big construction
Okay.
contract out there. And you guys will be, awarding that contract to whichever, contractor wins the bid amount.
Okay.
Certainly, those contractors will be driving around in pickup trucks and using heavy equipment to do that. So I'm not Mr. Cafiso. I can't tell you one way or the other, but I can throw brackets around that and let him know that there's a sensitivity to it, and if
You
it
bet.
could be treated a little differently, to be clearer.
Right. That's all I asked. Okay, thank you. And those were excellent questions. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I have a question here about the water. It says, facilities, collection, no, wait a minute, production and distribution of wastewater, water and wastewater. What are we doing with production of water?
You produce water.
You're talking 6 lines down, production and distribution and wastewater collecting and treatment?
Yeah, it says, within and without the town for water production and distribution. I mean,
Okay.
I can see distribution, but we're not producing
Comes
it.
out of the wells.
We have to buy one of Prescott's, well, we don't have to, but we're looking at possibly buying one of Prescott's wells, so that would be buying
Oh,
water
okay, that's part
production
of the bond
equipment.
issue then, buying that well? All right.
We've, to the best of my knowledge, we've got one well that's sanded up and we've got one that's operating, correct?
And we want to buy this well from Prescott so that we have a backup.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Back-
all right.
Okay, easy enough. All right, good, another excellent question. We do have to continue our water production, and the distribution is the big part of the cost here. Okay. Any others on the, we're going to be seeing this one again, but, okay. The resolution itself is fairly tedious insofar as reading it to our audience. Basically, it's the legal language authorizing an election, a bond election, notifying where the precincts, the polling places are, official returns from the election. And so if it pleases the council, we'll pass on through, get on past page 5 there, and do page A1 in the exhibits. This is the one that does not have the word vehicles in it, but it appears to be somewhat the same. Issuance of bonds payable, and this is the full form on the official ballot. Issuance of bonds payable from secondary ad valorem property tax. The question is, shall the town of Chino Valley, Arizona, the town, be authorized to incur indebtedness by the issuance of bonds of the town in the principal amount of $13,500,000 for the purpose of providing funds to pay the cost to design, develop, construct, acquire, equip, and furnish facilities of the town for water production and distribution and wastewater collection and treatment, including necessary related interests in real estate appurtenances and equipment, and to pay all costs incidental to any of the foregoing and to the sale and issuance of such bonds or any series thereof to be issued as general obligation bonds of the town payable from secondary ad valorem property tax levied upon all of the taxable property in the town to mature not more than 20 years from their date, and to bear interest at a rate of not to exceed 5% per annum. The issuance of these bonds will result in a property tax increase sufficient to pay the annual debt service on the bonds. And then there's just for the bonds or against the bonds. There's also a little tag form. It says a yes for the bonds vote shall authorize the town of Chino Valley, Arizona to sell and issue 13,500,000 principal amount of general obligation bonds. A no against the bonds vote shall not authorize the town of Chino Valley, Arizona to sell and issue such bonds. Yes, sir.
So which one of these forms, the first one, sounds like the second, Exhibit A is the one that's more, the one we,
I would imagine that,
first
that
one.
the second one will be the one that's on the ballot itself. Yes, sir.
And I apologize for the confusion. This first page that you looked at is what we worked with them on first. And subsequent to our discussions with Cafiso and Reader, they placed that here in in Exhibit A. And you'll note there are discrepancies. The term of the bond is different, the percentage of the bond is different. Those are the major changes, and the word vehicles has been removed as council instructed. Those differences in the term and the percentage are there because we don't know exactly what WIFA is going to authorize for us. And we want to write into the ballot terms that are large enough to accommodate WIFA, because if we undercut that, then we have to go back the other way. And
Right.
now, the 20-year term, I had some sensitivity to the 25-year term expressed here. And some towns can consider to refinance a bond and spread the debt out over a longer period of time. We want to try and keep this at a 20-year term. We want the interest rate as low as we can make it. And so the 20-year term finds itself here under Exhibit A, and the percentage is lower. Mark wasn't comfortable going with 3, and, you know, that kind of is us telling WIFA we expect to get this, and so the 5% is in there. But as soon as we have something from WIFA, we'll be able to tune that.
Okay, thank you. And for the council's benefit, this WIFA are the same folks that they've got a program where they do forgivable on some of the principal. They also have identified us as a distressed community, which our vice mayor had some comments about. And
Where I live's distressed.
pardon me.
Where I live's distressed.
All right. Anyway, and hopefully WIFA will give us a really decent rate. I'm hoping for the 3%.
So Exhibit A is probably what we're focused on right now, is that?
Yeah, Exhibit A will be pretty much what we're working with, and as our town manager mentioned, the 20 years and the 5% were, I would like to see us stay with the 20 years.
I agree.
And if we get good news from WIFA and they say they'll give us the money at 3%, that's that much the better. So. Any other questions or comments before we move on to Bravo 2, the resolution to the voters of Chino Valley? Resolution, and they gave us several blanks. I was hoping that we would have Mr. Reader here tonight. Yes, ma'am. Bravo 2, which is about 3 pages back.
Yeah, you missed Bravo 1, there's an error there.
Uh-huh.
The front page should be Town of Chino Valley.
Yeah, we talked about that before.
Right.
I think you brought that up last meeting.
The addresses are all wrong, and I have a question about who the absentee ballots do. Anyway, go on.
I have a question about what, ma'am? I couldn't
I
hear.
think it says in here that if they want an early ballot, they contact Jamie, and I thought it would be the registrar of voters for the county, but I'll talk about it when we get there.
Oh, okay, easy enough. On page B2, says the mayor and the common council of the town of Chino Valley, Arizona, pursuant to resolution number blank adopted on blank 2014, have ordered that a special election be held in and for the town of Chino Valley, Arizona, the town, on November 4th, 2014, the election. A person is entitled to vote in the election who has resided in a precinct in the boundaries of the town for 29 days preceding the election, who is qualified to register to vote as provided in section 16101, Arizona Revised Statutes as amended, and whose registration has been received by the Elections Department of Yavapai County, Arizona, prior to midnight of the 29th day preceding the date of the election. Last day to register for the election was blank. Then there's information on the purpose of the informational packet, which the voters will be given. It says that preparation of the informational packet is required by state law, and they list it as two different languages, English and Spanish. On the next page, B3, it's explaining to the voters that the mayor and council are requesting authorization to issue these general obligation bonds. It does explain that the town does not currently levy taxes for general obligation bonds. Citizens in the town oftentimes ask me about property taxes here, and I tell them that the county gets property taxes, but we as a town do not. There's blanks in there in so far as the approximate tax burden for the individuals. And I believe, wouldn't it, Mr. Cafiso said $7 per, was it 7 per thousand, something like that?
But our estimates are staying at 10 per 100,000.
Okay.
And as soon as we understand what the terms from WIFA are, we can dial that in a little bit better.
Okay.
We do have something going in front of their board of directors, and we should hear back from them, but we don't have that data today.
Okay, thank you. Also, while we have a lull, I want to remind our council that we're not allowed to promote or speak against the bond now that we've had that primary or preliminary call for election, whatever that was. The matters related to the bonds. Yes, sir.
Speak up louder.
Yes, sir.
I think you need to speak up louder.
Speak up
You're very
louder.
soft voice, yeah.
Okay, I was yelling. Yeah.
Oh, you-
All right. Can you hear me now? Okay.
Thank you.
Did the voices in my head carry out too?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Great.
In matters relating to the bonds, it says if approved at the election, the bonds which are the subject of the election, the bonds would provide funds to pay the costs to, and then there's a long blank there, and to pay all costs incidental to any of the foregoing and to the sale and issuance of such bonds. We basically have three big ticket items that we as a council, I suppose we'll be doing the wordsmithing on, but we need our audience to know that basically these three big ticket items are the purchase of the Prescott water system, the purchase of our wastewater treatment plant, and also to do a short stretch of pipe down Highway 89 to a stretch of Highway 89. I believe the bond issue that was brought up last year was the scope was wide enough to where it was even looking at what it would cost to sewer and water the entire Highway 89. Is that not correct? Okay. This year's bond issue deals with just that short segment from 2 north to 3 north. Is that correct, Mr. Smith?
Yes, sir.
All right.
The amount of bonds is listed. The tax rate increase, as has been pointed out earlier, is an estimate right now. But it's considered to be roughly about $10 per month for the average citizen. Then there's going to be several examples on B4. I would like to see those fleshed out as soon as we start getting some numbers in for our audience's edification. These are basically, the first category is owner-occupied residential property assessed at 10%. It gives you an assessor's full cash value. So if your home is somewhat near there, you get an idea of what that will be. For full cash value, secondary assessed value, and an estimated average annual cost and an estimated average monthly cost. So the individual citizen, if their house is somewhere near there, they can get a ballpark idea. Then the second grouping there is agricultural property, which is assessed at 16%, and with the same brackets: assessor's full cash value, secondary assessed value, annual cost, and monthly cost. And then the third bracket is commercial and industrial property, assessed at 19%, and it has the same four areas. So you'll have an idea whether you have agricultural property, commercial or industrial property, or owner-occupied residential property. You'll have a ballpark idea of what your taxes would be if you vote for the bond. Then there's some disclaimers on page B5. It says the assessor's full cash value is the value of your property as it appears on your tax bill and does not necessarily represent the market value. It just gives you some ideas of how the bond is calculated. Estimated issuance costs, that'll be nice when we get that one filled in. The current outstanding general obligation debt and constitutional debt limitation. This is one that we have to make sure, as that comes together, we have to make sure that we are not above our constitutional debt limitation. It says the town does not currently have ad valorem tax debt outstanding. The constitutional debt limit of the town is blank, being 26% of the current secondary assessed valuation of the town. So hopefully we'll have those numbers fairly soon also. There's a plan of finance which speaks about how the bonds are going to be repaid. For purposes of estimating the debt service on the bonds, the town anticipates amortizing the bonds over a period of 20 years and has assumed an increase of blank % of secondary assessed valuation for fiscal years 20 blank and such % growth thereafter. As we have, as a council, we have instructed our finance department, and I'm hoping that that carries over in talking with Mr. Reeder and Mr. Cafiso. I believe we need to assume the worst. We have to be very, very conservative, I guess you could say, insofar as our optimism. And I have found over the years that being conservative in our optimism is a good way to go. We may grow faster, we may have, we may be able to pay the debt off quicker, but I like being pleasantly surprised rather than otherwise. Any questions from our council so far? No. Page B7 is not, excuse me, fleshed out yet. Talking about the fiscal year estimated principal and estimated interest. page B8 gets on into the polling places and voting information. And as Ms. Hatch pointed out, I believe they just grabbed one of our old ballots and ended up with the town clerk's office on Palomino Road. I imagine
Be
that's how they
corrected.
did
Also, is
that.
that the correct direct line for the clerk right now? 636-2246?
2246, I believe, gets the.
No, it's not.
We
Look-
can,
Yes, sir.
we can ensure that the factual information's brought up to date.
Right, right. 2246, I believe, gets us development services, doesn't it? No idea.
I couldn't tell you, sir.
Okay,
But
okay.
Clerk's office is 2646.
No, Sheriff, I'm gonna correct it. I just want
Okay.
to point it out so they
Not to worry.
knew it was there.
We can put this number on the vice mayor's business card.
I would love everybody to call me, thank you.
Good, okay.
I get lonely.
More information on B9 regarding the absentee ballot. Yes, ma'am.
Will you hit B8?
Oh, returning to B8 shortly.
We've got another error there, so,
Yes, ma'am. Where?
okay. Are we in B8 or B9?
Yeah, on B8, I had just circled the town clerk's information at the bottom of the page. Where else?
That's fine.
Pardon me? That's it? Okay. And you have that noted, right, Mr. Smith?
yes, sir.
Okay. B9 is information on absentee ballots, and once again, at the bottom of B9 is information that needs to be corrected. And so far as the town clerk, contact info.
Is that what you appear in person?
Pardon me?
I didn't know you could appear in person before the town clerk. No later than the close of business to get an early ballot in person? It's gonna drive our town clerk crazy, is that true? You're gonna have people showing up at the town, I don't think so.
You won't be lonely.
I think maybe you better check that and make
Okay.
sure it's correct. Cause we're
Okay.
gonna have a mess if everybody decides to show up there.
Which line was that,
It's
miss?
the very first paragraph on
Top
B9.
paragraph
Okay.
of B9.
In
Okay,
addition to correcting the address, it says you can show up in person there, 8 AM to 5 PM.
Isn't this this is not a, this is a regular, you gotta go to the polls election, I believe,
Yeah.
so they
Mayor.
can't do it.
It
Yeah,
says
I
to
believe- I
vote
believe we.
an early absentee ballot in person. This
Okay.
is an earlier absentee that you just show up at the clerk's office. I wonder
To
if
get
that's
the ballot?
correct.
I think they just took some boilerplate language off of one of our old ballots. Yes, sir.
I would suspect that they're required by law to allow a person who shows up at town hall to secure and vote on an absentee ballot.
Okay.
So
Anyway,
we'll check with Mr.
If you
Confuso. would,
please verify that. Thank you. Our clerks are stressed enough without having that.
Means they have to show ID under state law.
Yeah.
Mayor,
Okay.
when I look at that for the fifth time, I think it just says, if you want to vote an early absentee ballot in person, if you want to do one in person,
Right.
not that you have to be in person to vote
No,
early
but-
absentee.
They can just show up all of a sudden.
Okay. Well, we're going to have that verified, and if it's required by law, it's required by law. If there's a way we can mitigate that and make life easier for our clerks, we want to do that if at all possible, so.
Also, the next paragraph there,
Address again.
no, it's the address, but I don't know whether you submit a written request to the town of Chino Valley Clerk's office. Maybe they do under the new law, but normally it would be the Register of Voters. But maybe because of the change in law it is, but this is an old example, so. See if you want a early ballot, I mean, that kind of goes with the paragraph before it.
Yes, ma'am.
So you have to verify it.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
can we ask the town manager to make sure this is all correct by the next time we get this back, so we don't have to
Okay.
go through this.
Easy enough. And I just marked these 3 areas, Mr. Smith.
If you would just look at
All
it,
right.
Robert,
Cool.
with the new law.
Excellent.
There's 3 pages on that page where the address is wrong.
Pardon me, 2
There's
places?
three
Oh, 3
places.
places, yes.
Mhm.
Yes, ma'am. Those were the 3 that I indicated to our town manager, so we're good to go on that. Back on page C1 is a request for arguments for or against the authorization of a primary ad valorem property tax in and for the town of Chino Valley, Arizona, and the issuance of bonds payable from a secondary ad valorem property tax by the town to be considered by the voters of the town of Chino Valley, Arizona, at an election to be held on November 4th, 2014. These requests, Ms. Hatch asked an interesting question back on the 27th. I believe at one point in time, it cost $80 to write an argument for or against. I believe it was $80 to do that. And I'm not real sure now that they require a charge for that.
He said, as I recall, he
Pardon me?
said no,
Okay,
but you had to let anybody who wanted to put something in, put it in.
okay. Easy enough. I've had folks tell me that you don't have enough money to have an opinion, so I just thought maybe that came from that voting law. All right. That wraps the last page, Exhibit C, unless anybody has any questions on that.
The address is noted on that one, too.
Noted on Exhibit C.
And
Yes, ma'am.
Address and phone number.
Yes, ma'am. Did you get that, Mr. Smith?
I did, thank
Okay,
you.
page C1 in the center of the page. Okay, easy enough. Now, we have, since we didn't have a formal presentation, I'm going to now open us up for public input. Is there anyone from the public that wishes to address the council regarding the wording on the bond issue? No. I was going to tell you, you have to raise your hand to ask. And all right. No one from the public having questions on wording regarding the bond issue? What I mentioned. Yes, sir. If you do have a question, you need to come up there.
I'm trying to understand, do we have any advice or reaction to the wording of the bond issue rather than the whole bond issue itself?
Okay. Tonight's study is review, discussion, and revision of the general obligation bond, so it's a broad enough subject that, yes, sir, if you do have something to say, please come up to the microphone and identify yourself, because as has been pointed out in the past, we have folks at home that watch this, and we want folks to be able to hear your voice. So, yes, sir.
All right, my name is Steve Chavez. I own the Chino Golf Range. I'm reluctant tonight to address the council without the presence of the press. Unless Matt is going to represent the review, are you? No, okay. I understand she only works a 29-hour week, so she doesn't come to study sessions, the reporter.
Oh, okay.
Actually, Mr. Mayor, I would have appreciated, I don't mind being invited to a study session here. I wished I had been invited to the general meeting involving the easements on my property a week ago. That would have been a good heads up, because I found out about it afterwards.
Okay.
I am just, I'm going to try to tell you a story that's true. Back in my home state in Vermont, I was chairman of a committee for 11 years who created a sewer district in our town. We built a 1.2 million gallon plant, 12 miles of sewer line with two lift stations. And then it came time to write our sewer use ordinance, which is pretty much what you're, I think, doing here tonight. This is the method by which you are going to tax the people for those expenses. We wrote an ordinance going two directions. The first thing we decided was to pay for maintenance and operation. We were going to tax the users on their water usage through meters. The second one was we were going to tax the people in the district with a property tax based on appraised value. We call it the grand list back there in New England. Here you call it appraised values in Arizona. And we did billing. We got an objection from one of the residents in the district who was about a quarter of a mile from the nearest sewer line, whose name was Fred. He had 8 condominiums, and he objected to being billed for a service he couldn't get to. He sued us, and he won. The judge explained that our sewer district did not have the authority to expect Fred to go to such an extent and expense to run a 1,500-foot sewer line through rough terrain and had to go through a property owner at the same time. And in light of the fact that he could not make use of the facility, we had no right to bill him at all. Mm-hmm. We decided shortly after that we were not going to bill anyone who was not hooked up to the system, because we were afraid that probably we would be facing more than one suit when they found out about Fred. That's really a true story, and I'm putting this to you to maybe you want to reconsider the direction you're going with this property tax for non-users. Are there any comments or questions?
Ms. Hatch had a question or a comment.
Hi, Mr. Chantos. My question is did you put the issue before the voters before you expended the money?
Oh, yeah. Yes, we did.
And the voters voted to have you install it that way and charge the non-users as well?
In those days, this was 40 years ago, in the 70s and early 80s. And Vermont law didn't require us to be as specific as the Arizona legislature has spelled out your responsibilities. It's really more than I would want to deal with. Our ordinance, we had to have our ordinance approved, which is similar to what you're doing here, in terms of how we were going to charge our people in our district. So, and the state approved our ordinance. So the state, yes, I think in answer to your question, the state knew how we were going to do it, yes.
Did the voters vote on it?
And the voters voted on it, yeah.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Did you have a question? No. Yes.
Well, just to make sure, my question similar to Linda's was, it specifies right in what we're going out to the public with on how and who will pay for it. So if it's specified like that, and I guess my question was somewhat the same, if it is specified like that, it's voted on by the community, then I have a hard time figuring how someone could individually, sue toward that end.
Well, the argument that Fred used was he was being taxed for a facility that he could not make use of.
Right, but there's going to be several voters in the community. In fact, probably the majority of the voters in the community are not going to be able to make use of this immediately, and they know, and they're going to know that when they go to the poll. So that was my only question on.
Well, the majority of them were being serviced by our sewer line, because it was actually at the Mount Snow ski area. Maybe you've heard of it. Some people out here in the West never heard of Mount Snow, but in those days, it was the largest ski area in the United States. And our town, our half of the town, the river went up right up the middle, and our sewer plant went in the lowest end of the river. And it was servicing a lot of ski lodges, which was the purpose of going into it was actually technically a fire district, but under Arizona law, you create water districts under that law. And there were maybe in a population of 1,000 homes, there were probably a couple dozen people that were too far from the sewer line, if that's what you're thinking of.
All right, thank you. Did you have a follow-up question?
No, just, definitely something that we can run by our attorney and.
You bet.
And,
I
food for thought.
I believe Mr. Cafiso has done one or two bond issues, and so I must have missed a scene in the movie. It sounded like you built the plant and then taxed the citizens. Is that correct?
Well, we created a sewer use ordinance which included how we were going to tax the people, even before we got the money. We had a lot of federal money, and this is an EPA project.
Was this a water district, or was this a
No,
sewer
this was
district,
actually,
or-
it was under Vermont law, there was only one law at the time. It was called, a municipality may create a fire district for the purposes of providing sewerage, water, and other municipal services. They use the word fire district. We were called a prudential committee rather than a council.
Yeah.
And we had the same authority. We were elected.
Okay, just one more clarification, though. It sounded like in your narrative that you built the plant, had the pipes in the ground, and then put a bond issue out before the
No.
citizens. But okay, I was confused as to how you had done that. Chino Valley's doing that, but what Chino Valley is trying to do is try and get its finances right side up. You had something to
Yeah,
say?
this was in state court, Superior Court.
It was actually Superior Court.
And
It's,
so the judge, when he issued his decision, would have cited some section of Vermont law?
I didn't read his decision. We had our own attorneys that told us we lost. And,
Yeah, you need to read the
I mean, this is
the
40 years
wording.
ago, Linda.
Yeah, I know. But the thing is once in a while, one state law carries to another, and I think you'd have to read the basis of certainly it sounds logical that someone shouldn't have to pay for something. We've seen this in Chino Meadows for a long time, that they built the sewer system and had to pay for it, along with the other developments out there, that they allowed the entire town to vote on it instead of just the people who were affected. Certainly you'd have to look at what the judge was citing for the basis of his decision. Now, he wouldn't have said it's just wrong. He would have hopefully have given you a basis for doing that.
Well, he just explained to us in a written decision that was passed down through the attorney that we had no right to, we could not tax Fred for a facility that he couldn't make use of. that was that kind of language.
I just briefly, I can't stand it. I have to say this. I wish Mr. Chantos was speaking to our federal government because I, Mayor Marley, am being taxed for a lot of stuff that I don't get to be take advantage of. But just a thought.
I was going to use an example of the school district. I don't have any children in the school district, but I'm still taxed.
The Supreme Court decided that back in 1918.
So there's a lot of things that I'm taxed for that I don't use. It's not available to me.
the
But I
Supreme
do it
Court
for the
ruled.
community.
You bet. And we're not going to turn this into an.
I'd like to
exchange, but thank
respond,
you,
though, but
thank you.
a lot of people use that as an example. The Supreme Court ruled, I believe it was 1918, that a school tax was constitutional because people paid for our education, and thereby we had a responsibility, the older folks had a responsibility to pay for theirs. That was the rationale behind that Supreme Court decision.
Easy enough. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you. Was there anyone else from the audience that had any questions or comments?
Are we going to ask our attorney if that applies?
I believe our attorney and especially our bond attorney will be the one that will be able to answer that. I think our attorney's not as schooled in this specific area as what Mr. Cafiso and Mr. Reeder are. Like I said, I believe they've done one or two bond issues, and they're a little bit aware of the laws surrounding them. Yes, sir.
We wouldn't be here doing what we're doing now, this far down the line, if the bond attorneys didn't think that this was sound and stable under state law. But beyond Mr. Cafiso and Mr. Reeder, our own general attorneys have looked at this. Bill Stoudemire has also looked at this. There's a good handful of attorneys that assure us that this is an appropriate mechanism and approach for funding the purposes that have been outlined in the ballot.
Okay, thank you. And one other for our audience edification, I know Mr. Chantos is a great fan of the Constitution. He gave me a couple of pocket ones, which I thought was pretty cool. Went out and got another handful of them to hand out to people. I believe in a constitutional government, and I think it's neat that the people of our town will have an opportunity to vote. If we get this bond issue in front of them, let them decide. So,
Now that you raised the issue, you might take out your little book and read the 14th Amendment once more.
Oh, I've read them on a regular basis. Yes, sir.
Do we have any idea when we put
Please come up here.
Ronald Majors, Chino Valley, do we have any idea when WEFA will make their decision, or what, so we'll know what kind of period we're going to, leading into the actual election, so people can absorb what the interest rate and term of the bond and so forth is going to be?
Okay, we're going to be having, I believe, informational sessions where some of these blanks will be filled in. Right now, we've got a lot of estimates because there's some moving parts.
I understand, I just wondered if
Right.
they have ever given an idea when they would have a decision.
You bet. November 4th will be when the public gets to vote on it, but as the numbers come in, we'll try and get them out to the public as quickly as we can. One good thing about the information age, which there's not too many, but one good thing about it is we have several different venues in which to get that information out, through the town's Facebook, through the newspaper, through radio. We have several different mechanisms. So, all right.
Mayor,
Yes, sir.
and I had that same question, so I'm gonna repeat his. Do we have any idea when WIFA will get back with us and let us know that information?
Yes, sir. My understanding is they have a board of directors meeting in August, and we will have hard approved details from them by then. We hope to have sharper pencil before then, and I'm hopeful that sometime in July we're able to reach concurrence. There's I think somewhere around 8 meetings, 4 study sessions and 4 council meetings between now and, say, mid-July. And I believe as we meet on this and council deliberates over it, and we get feedback back to Mr. Reader and Mr. Cafiso, and we keep that thing bouncing back and forth, a comfort level will be developed by then.
You bet. All right.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
What is our drop dead date to get the information into the state? Or
Early August.
Yeah, we're, this is moving fairly quickly. And basically, it's going to be out of the hands of the town council. It'll be in, we're just trying to get the information out to the citizens here. Yeah, we'll be having lots of informational meetings. Any other questions or comments from our council?
Right now.
Yes, sir.
One more thing I wanted to ask. I understand that I'm going to be on the agenda at your next regular meeting on the GEO bond issue. Am I correct?
I believe you are.
Okay.
Yes.
That's when I'll be back.
Okay. You don't look like Arnold, but yeah, okay, good enough. He'll be back. All right, any other questions, comments from our council?
I'm good.
Okay, good. All right.
Move to adjourn.
Okay, move to adjourn. Second? Fine.
I'm
Yes,
sorry,
sir.
Mayor. Early when we began the meeting, I wanted to solicit council's input on any Q&A language that they might like to see the bond folks include. And so, and you don't necessarily have to tell me that here in this meeting, but I would like to get some Q&A information over to them so that when they are before you on Tuesday, the 10th, they will have some response on that. So if council would like to email me separately directly, just don't hit the reply to all button.
Right.
Any thoughts you have on Q&A, I'd love to collect that and get it over to Mr. Reader.
Okay,
For the public's benefit, I think he means questions and answers.
you bet. Thank you. All right. Yes, it'd be nice if each of our council members could at least come up with one question and answer, something that your average citizen would ask. Okay? Yes, sir.
Could I suggest that the chamber,
Into your microphone, please, so the folks at home can hear you.
can I suggest that the chamber maybe do a survey and get some questions from the general public? That would, I mean, we're getting all kinds of information here, but the questions would probably be more appropriate from the general public, like, those are legitimate questions.
Okay, yeah, most of us are interacting with the town. I'm planning on using a couple of the questions that townsfolk have asked me, so.
Okay.
But as council members, I don't think we can go to a hardware store or grocery store without getting asked a couple of questions per week. And granted, they may not be on the bond issue, but as the bond issue becomes more, a higher profile, I bet we'll have more and more questions. And then we can just take them and put them down, so.
Okay.
All right. Anything else before we adjourn? Because we have had a motion and a second to adjourn. All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries.